It is my pleasure to introduce Dr. Sasha Hawkes. She is our next speaker and our last speaker of the morning. She received her PhD from the Oklahoma State University, and she then completed her residency at Children's Hospital of Alabama and her fellowship at the University of Texas here in Austin. Her clinical focus is on cognitive behavioral therapy in children with complex medical conditions, and I'm proud to call her a colleague embedded within our Children's Blood and Cancer Center with helping take care of our patient population, including our neurofibromatosis patients. Today she'll be speaking on psychosocial impacts of neurofibromatosis. Please welcome Dr. Hawkes.
Thank you, Dr. Harrod. That was very kind. And I'm super excited to be here. So thank you all for coming and hearing what we have to say. I'm really excited about this because I work in mostly hematology oncology, with the smallest part of my job actually being within dermatology, which, as you just heard from one of my other colleagues, Dr. Levy, neurofibromatosis really goes across all the different clinics that I work in. So Dr. Harrod gave me a beautiful introduction, but I'm a pediatric psychologist here at Dell Children's, and I'm also over at Dell Med, and I'm the training director of our psychology program, and so I'm constantly looking for opportunities to get trainees involved and to teach our future generations about the medical implications and the psychosocial implications of chronic illness. So if you ever see me, I might have somebody with me who's learning the job that I do. And I'm a proud auntie of Savannah, who your children have been playing with while you guys have been in here learning.
Oh, thank you, Savannah.
Yes. When we think about psychosocial functioning, I put a lot of the words that we kind of strive for. So we want health, we want happiness, we want fun, confidence. We think about the family environment, the school environment, the friends environment, peers. We think of a lot of different things when it comes to psychosocial functioning. And while we want the best in all of these situations, it's also these environments and these situations that many of our children can sometimes struggle in. And so today I'm going to highlight some of the high comorbidity psychological and psychosocial stressors and challenges that our kids with NF might experience, and really pointing out what you guys as parents can be looking for, and then what we do in these situations so that you know when to ask for more help, how to talk to your kids about this, how to support your kids if they might be experiencing these challenges. So one of the ones, given that you guys are sitting here in a children's hospital, you have multiple medical providers that your children have to come see. So one of our most prevalent diagnoses that we often see is anxiety. And in our kiddos, anxiety can be seen in a number of different ways, such as having excessive or uncontrollable worry. So this might be constantly asking for support from you. Am I going to be okay? Am I going to get a shot? What are we going to do? And so asking to really understand what's going to happen next and seeking reassurance. This can also be seen if they all of a sudden don't want to be coming to the hospital, if they're having bad reactions on the drive into the hospital. They know as soon as you make that turn into the parking garage, I don't want to be here, and maybe you start getting some resistance. So this is all related to anxiety. You might notice some trouble sleeping. This can either be falling asleep or staying asleep. I know a lot of parents will tell me, as soon as we go to lay down to go to sleep, the kid just starts talking and their brain starts going. So this might be indicative of some anxiety, or waking up in the middle of the night, not being able to fall back asleep. In school, you might see difficulties concentrating. So if a kiddo's never really had challenges concentrating and they've done really well in school, and all of a sudden you're starting to see differences, they're not able to pay attention, you're getting reports from the teacher that they're being challenged a little bit more, then this could be another indicator of some anxiety. Also, if they seem more restless, a little bit more irritable, having some muscle tension, so kind of having complaints that really don't have a medical explanation for, again, some ideas that we might want to consider. And then lastly, any type of pain that we don't have a medical indication for. So many times headaches and stomach aches can be an indicator of anxiety. And so we definitely want to work collaboratively with your medical teams to ensure that this isn't related to a medical diagnosis, but that it could be related to anxiety. We were just talking about a shared patient that we have to figure out what is going on, but oftentimes there can be some anxiety. We expect our kids to have anxiety because of everything they're going through. And so when we talk about this, I don't want to talk about it as like a diagnosis, but actually as something that we would expect and that can be helpful. I never want a kid to not be anxious because there is a role that anxiety plays in our lives. But we want to also you guys to be aware of what it is and when you might need treatment. The next one that can be common is depression. And I'm also going to talk about this in terms of sadness. I will say for all of our kiddos that have medical complexities, it's okay to be sad. I don't expect all kids to be happy all the time because as adults, we also go through periods of more sadness. But we also want to make sure that it's not that they're not too sad or that it's not getting in the way of functioning. And so those are kind of the big things that we're looking for. Is this a reaction that's out of proportion with what's going on? But also, is it getting in the way of the functioning? Are they not being able to go to school because of this? Or are they losing friends? Are they withdrawing from family members, not doing things that they enjoy? Some signs of depression is not doing the things that they used to like doing. So if they used to love going outside and riding their bike, and now you offer that as an opportunity and they're like, I'd rather just stay here. I don't want to do that. I don't want to go to school. I don't want to do Girl Scouts. Things that they used to enjoy, then we would want to get some more information about that. Again, just like with anxiety, sleep challenges, so difficulties falling asleep, difficulties staying asleep are something as well as difficulties concentrating. So you guys can start to see that many of these things might look similar. And that's when you might want to come see a psychologist, see a social worker to see if we can help figure it out so that we can create a treatment plan. Changes in weight or appetite, so either wanting to eat more than usual or eating less than usual, or significant shifts in weight is something that we're looking for if a child's not trying, which hopefully no child is trying to change their weight. And then another big one is when we think about depression or sadness, in kiddos, we actually see a lot more irritability. So it's not so much the sadness as adults we might feel, but they're actually more irritable, snapping at their siblings, not being as pleasant to be around as they usually are. So I think that a lot of parents are like, well, they're not depressed, they're not sad, but they're really irritable. And so for us, that's definitely something that we want to know. And the last big one is one that's really challenging to talk about, but I wanted to mention is any time that they mention they might not want to be here anymore, so they don't want to be alive, maybe they want to give up because medically it's just so complicated. Anytime a kid says this, we want to take it seriously. And so I'm sure you guys have noticed within our clinics, we're constantly screening when you come in for these types of thoughts. And I know it can be uncomfortable, but it's also incredibly important that we allow the space for them to share those thoughts with us. And then we figure out what is our next step. How do we support these kids if they're feeling this way? Another highly comorbid psychological diagnosis that we see in kids with NF is ADHD. And so this can be diagnosed a number of places, either at a pediatrician's office. Both neurology and hematology oncology have neuropsychologists on staff, and I'm sure many of you have met with one of the respective neuropsychologists, and so they can make this diagnosis. But it's seen difficulties focusing or concentrating, being hyperactive or impulsive, making careless mistakes on homework, not being able to carry out multi-step instruction. So maybe you tell the kid, put your shoes on, grab your backpack, and get in the car, and you realize they got in the car, but they forgot their shoes and they forgot their backpack. So that's something we see frequently. They remember one thing, but they can't do 3 steps. Or difficulties with organization and fidgeting. So a lot of times these types of symptoms often come out in school when we're asking for sustained attention. So functionally, they might do really well at home. You might have over a child's lifetime just kind of figured out how to keep them busy, how to keep them moving, and how to kind of accommodate these things. But in school, when there's a lot of other kids and they're asked for some sustained attention, we might start to see some challenges here. And another one that I want to talk about is autism spectrum disorder. So this is characterized by delays in social interactions, potential delays in speech development, fixation on specific interests. So maybe it's trains or trucks or spiders. And that seems to be the only thing that the kid wants to talk about. And then if someone tries to engage them in another conversation, they kind of bring it back to what they're interested in. And challenges taking other people's perspectives, poor eye contact, or repetitive movements. Again, we have so many great colleagues in both neurology and hematology oncology who you can speak to, who can support in if you have any concerns with autism spectrum disorder. And if this diagnosis is made, we have a lot of support within the community that social work, behavioral health, your medical providers can help to get you hooked in with. If you have any questions there. I think some of the biggest things to think about, so those are all like diagnoses that psychologists see, but our role is really greater than just those diagnoses, but it's really helping a child cope with a chronic illness. So having a chronic illness, a child might feel different. They might start to notice in school that they have different characteristics from their other friends. In dermatology, a lot kids will tell me, my skin is different, I look different, people call me names because I have eczema or I have these cafe au lait spots, like what do I do? So we really try to empower these kids to feel good in their own skin and to embrace the differences that they do have, because we all have our differences. It can also be really challenging to take medication. Many of our chronically ill kids take a lot of medication, more than most of us as adults, and that can be challenging with organization, with just getting a kid to do it because they don't want to. They might need injections, which can be challenging, and we want to ensure that we're not causing them more trauma by forcing them, holding them down for an injection. Oftentimes our kids get picked on or bullied. Kids can be incredibly mean, and I think with social media, it is becoming an even bigger problem of how they can kind of hide behind a screen. And so if you have any concerns about that, please let your medical providers know so that a psychosocial team member can support, because our kids should not be being bullied, and it's something that we're not going to tolerate. As they get older and they start to understand what it means to have a chronic disease and that it's not going to go away, acceptance of diagnosis can be really important as well. Just helping them understand this is kind of like an unwanted visitor. So you can try to kick an unwanted visitor out, but they're always going to be there. So instead of being mad about it and saying, I just don't want this, how do we move forward together? How do we accept it? Figure out what we need to do, and then move forward with that diagnosis. And just coping in general with any of the other things that I mentioned. So whether it's anxiety, sadness, having ADHD, having challenges in school, being bullied, any of those things. How do you cope with that? What skills do you have? What skills do we need to give you? And then how do we move forward? If you have concerns about any of this, then I would encourage you to talk to your medical teams. I know each of you in this room see multiple providers, psychologists such as myself. It is a growing field, and so they're available in primary care offices, in neurology, in hematology, in dermatology, in many of the clinics throughout this hospital. They can help identify referrals for behavioral health support. Social work is also available to provide support as well, and I know we've referred to social work earlier, so they might be an option as well. Referrals for psychiatry. So the difference, there's a lot of confusion between psychology and psychiatry. So psychology does therapy and psychiatry does the medication piece. So oftentimes they'll work hand in hand. We kind of look at therapy as skills and psychiatry as pills, but you kind of need both of them because therapy in the long term has the best research outcomes, and in the short term, medication can be helpful to kind of stabilize and move forward. Again, referrals to neuropsychological assessment. So if you have concerns of ADHD, autism spectrum disorder, then they're the ones that can do a very beautiful, lovely assessment that provides a lot of information to the medical teams, but also to you as families. And then any type of further assessment that you guys would like, we are able to help figure out what next steps are. One thing that I don't want to ignore, that you guys are all here because you have a child with NF, and this can be challenging on parents as well, especially depending when you found out about the diagnosis of NF. And we all create stories in our head. So you find out you're pregnant and you created a whole story for your kid. And then life likes to make shifts and make challenges in there. And so being aware that this is hard for you guys too. It is hard to have a chronically ill child. You're having to learn to navigate the medical system, to navigate this complex psychosocial system, to navigate multiple teams, to stay on top of calls and appointments. That's things you never anticipated to do. So you might actually need support too, and that's available as well. So letting the same providers know, your medical team, your psychosocial team, social works, behavioral health, so that we can figure out what the best referrals are for you guys as well. Done.